All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the how to place structural steel in the Revit model. So just, forewarning, I'm not an expert at structural steel or placing it. Just want to, be able to show you guys how to use it. It's fairly easy. So I just wanted to make sure you guys kind of try it and do it on your own to see if you guys can follow along if you want, or you guys can watch the recording back. But I'm just going to go through straight in Revit. No PowerPoint for this, but we'll just kind of walk through. So if you do want to follow along, you can kind of use the Walt standard template. It's the same one that I went over in the setup. I'm not going to do it now because mine takes forever to load. But what we essentially want to do is be able to place all of these. This is 1951 Harbor Bay. We want to be able to place these structural columns and even the framing. So I'm going to walk you through that. We've ever since we moved over to Revit, we kind of are a little spoiled now that we've got these structural models. In AutoCAD, we used to place everything on the floor plans, just see if there's any clashes. So I just want to make sure that we understand how to do it, just in case you need to do it for your project, or if you're just trying to learn Revit. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of mimic this building a little bit. We're going to load in the same structural columns and frames, and then we'll kind of lay it out. So we'll go ahead and get started. So again, if you want to follow along, just open up the Walt standard template and go to the first floor. And what we're going to do first is we need to create our floors. So I'm going to mimic, like I said, this one. I'm going to follow their floor logic. So if you create an elevation here, I just want to see the levels, right? You can find this from a PDF, you can find it anywhere, but I just need to get these levels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I can probably split screen it. I'm going to split screen it, and then I'm going to go over to mine. And then I'm going to do the same thing on mine. I'm going to go to the south elevation, and then I have these two by default. I'm just going to create the rest. And again, if you haven't created a level, you can either copy them up, or you can just click on this dimension. This needs to be 16 feet. So I can either just click on the level and click on this where it says 10 feet and just change it to 16. That'll be my second level. Now I can just copy this up. You can use your constraint up here and multiple, so you don't have to keep clicking. I'm hit constraint, I'm hit multiple. I'm going to go straight up. You can either try to calculate the difference, or you can just place it and then just click on this and just change it to what it needs to be, 30 feet 6, and then for some reason it's level 5. I'll change it to level 3. And you can just keep doing this for all the levels. So we'll just do this real quick. Once you do it once, it knows what it's going to be the next time, so it should recognize that it's going to be level 4. And click, and then click one more time. So fourth level should be 45, and then the roof is going to be 59.6, and the penthouse is going to be 69. So if you watch this setup, we would usually copy monitor the levels in, but for this demonstration, we're just going to say there's no model, but we're just going to have to create our own. So that's why I went ahead and created them on my own. So once you have the levels, we can go to the floor plan and make the grids, because we're going to be using both when we create these columns. So for reference, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to their floor plan and just see where they have it in relation to kind of their dimensions, or their project base point and survey point. Again, like in the setup video, if you go to the site plan, but they don't have a site plan, but you can go to their site options, I just hit VV on the keyboard. It brought me to this visual graphics overview or override. And also click on it here, the VG override. And I turn the project base point and survey point on. And you can see that it's right here. So that's kind of the base points I used. Again, if I were to have the model, I would copy and monitor these in, or sorry, acquire the coordinates. I can see that it's 1'6" and 1'6". That's just kind of a base point I want to use to make sure that we're in the same spot. So if I go to mine, and I go to the site plan, you can see I have mine there, and I'm going to use that 1'6" to lay out my grid. So I'm going to start with A and 1, that corner. Or sorry, A and the bottom one. A and 5.4. So I can go ahead and make mine on my project. So if you go to architecture, you go to datum is a grid, or you can just type GR. And then you can just go ahead and make your first grid. For some reason it starts on 3. You can just click it, double click it, and just change it to 1. All right. And I'll do the same thing for this. Or sorry, that should be A, huh? And then this is going to be, oops. And then these should be 1'6" away from that, just to make sure we're in the same spot. I'm just going to move them. You can dimension them if you want, but I'm just going to move them. Right there. I'm going to move them over 1'6" and then down 1'6". So we should be in the same relationship as theirs. So good so far? Yeah. All right. So once we have that, we're going to lay out the rest of the grid. And I kind of dimension these, and they're pretty much like 32 feet. So you can dimension it, and it's 32 feet. So what you can do is just copy it over. Again, you can just use the copy, and then use the constrain multiple, and then just click somewhere and just type 32. And you can just, you can see that it has the next one, which I think is 5.5. It's actually, oh, baby woke up. Actually B. So once you put it in once, again, it's going to remember it. So you can just keep typing 32. You can see it says C, 32, however many times you want. Let's just do a couple. That way we show you what's happening with the grid. That's good. We'll go to G, and then you can drag these over just to make them a little bit longer. And then we're going to do the same thing with the grids going up. So if I go to here, what's the typical spacing? And let's go 26. Let's just go 26. Not going to be exactly matching that one. It's just kind of a little sample. 26. So this is going to be 5. And then I'm going to copy this up. 26. Oh, it wants to go up. There we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so now that we have our grids in there, we can stretch them. You can see kind of this is the grid layout. So now it's kind of the exciting time where we're going to actually put steel in there. So I can move these out of the way. Just dragging them and moving. There we go. I'm going to go to just the first level. You can see it, yeah, the base point goes away. But now I'm going to actually start putting these columns in here. So a couple of things to note about them. You can see that I have this column here. If I click on it, it's going to highlight in the model. In plan view, it looks like just lines. That's because it's on course view. So in Revit, we have course, medium, and fine. So if it's on course, it's just going to be just lines. If it's on medium, you can see that it changes. It's actually going to be, you know, a little square. It'll show the profile like the thickness, but it's all like square. There's no radiuses. And then when you go to the fine view, you can see that's when it has all the radiuses in there. So that's why you can see, you know, toggle between them. So if you're kind of just seeing this, it's probably just because you're on course view. Sometimes they get missed because, you know, sometimes they are just lines, so it's hard to see. So if you do want to change it, you can just switch it here. Okay. So this one is a W10 by 54. And, you know, you can find this in the PDF on how far it goes up and all that, but I'm going to use it based on the model. I can see that it starts at level 1 and it goes to the roof, and they have a little offset from the roof by -5 inches. So we can kind of do the same thing with ours. And for the sake of it, I'm going to select all instances in the view, and you can see that it happens the majority of the building. So if I go to the 3D, you see it happens most of the time except for, you know, a couple areas, maybe here. But I'm going to show you how to add it to all of the grids just at once, and then we kind of like swap those out. So if I go back to my model, I can go to the structure tab here. We haven't used it too much. You might have messed with it every once in a while. But we have structural framing. You can build a structural wall, or you can put a structural column. The key shortcut is CL on the keyboard. And you can go ahead and use this button to actually place it. So I can hit column, and then you can see it opens up which shapes you have loaded in your project. 10 by 33 and a 10 by 49. I want a 10 by 54. So what you can do is you can just load the family in. If I hit load family. And these are going to be the ones straight out of Revit. So when you hit load family, you probably are being directed here, which is US Imperial. And this is these are the default families that Revit has. So you can see it has annotations, doors, you know, everything you can use. But we want to go to the bottom and we want to click on structural columns. That's where all of these are going to be located. So you go to structural columns. Again, you have more options. It can be concrete, precast, steel, wood, light gauge steel. Let's go with steel. And again, you got more options, you know, depending on what type you want to use. For our specific case, we can use the wide flange column, because that's kind of what it'll be. So you click on it, and you kind of get a little preview of what's going to look like. So you can kind of go through and see what the difference are between all of these by hitting the preview. But I'm just going to load in that wide flange column. Hit open. And what it's going to do, it's going to load in all the types. So since this family has a whole bunch of different types, this allows you to choose a couple or maybe just one. It doesn't really matter how many you choose, but you can choose a whole bunch if you want. So I want a W10 by 54. It is. Again, you can hold, you know, shift. You can select multiple. You can hold control. Either one works. So I'll just load this one and maybe just another one. Hit OK. And now it becomes active in my shapes. I'm not sure what the difference is between W-shaped column and wide flange column, but you have this W10 by 54 you can use. I can go ahead and place this at an intersection. Or you can place it wherever it needs to go. Commonly is at an intersection. You can see that it's just aligned, so because I'm in my course view. If I place it, I would just click it. Let's say I need it to be rotated, I can use the space bar and it'll rotate 90 degrees or 40 degrees. Yeah. You can do 45 or whatever degree if you have like a reference. So say you need it with some specific angle, you can draw like a 45 angle in there or 45 detail line. It'll actually snap to it. But I want it to be there. And then one of the things before you place it is pay attention to the options up here. It's saying that it's going to go down like it's a depth, or you can change it to height. And then you can say, I want it to be at level 1. Oh, sorry, not level 1. It can be unconnected, and I can be, 20 feet up or something. And because I'm on level 1, that's where it's going to place it. So I can go ahead and click that, and then it'll place it. You can see it looks like it's just 2D, but it's actually, if I go to my 3D view, it's actually being placed on what I specified. So I placed on the first level, and it's going up to the first level 20 feet. Okay. You can actually just click on each one and do that, but there's actually a quicker way to do it. If you have them at all of your grid line intersections, you can go to column, and you can use this at grid line intersection. So if you click that, you would then specify, it's always good to read your command line. It says select grid lines to place structural columns at intersection points. So say this happens at all of my intersections, I can just Windows select all by grid line. And then what I can do is I can just hit finish. And based on the properties that I had when I clicked on it, you can see that it put all of them in. So at every intersection, it put that 10 by 54. So if I go to my 3D view, you can see that it placed it. Pretty quick. I mean, if you need to change a couple of them for whatever reason, if they're either the opposite way, you can just hit spacebar. Or if you actually need to change it, you can just click on one or multiple and just change it to that. It doesn't look like much because it's probably the same shape or the same size. It's a little different. So that's kind of how you'd be able to put your structural columns in there. So say, for example, let me actually change this back to 10 by 54. Say I want to actually change the height of them. You can either Windows select, or since they're all the same, I can just select all in the project. And then, say I wanted this to go to the roof, or I didn't change it yet, so it would be the 5th floor, and you can specify an offset. I can go at -5 feet. They all grow. All right. Pretty easy to do if they're all at the grid lines. It might take you a little more time to place them if they're not. But I thought that was a cool little trick. So once I have the structural columns in there, I can then put in my structural framing. The structural framing will go from column to column. So I would need to load in another family. So I would go back to my project, and then I would use this beam, structural framing beam, so BM. So they're individual beams or a chain of beams along a grid lines. You can add grid lines and columns before adding the beams. That's kind of the key because it's kind of the same tool. So if you put all your columns and your grid lines, it's going to be automatic. So I'm going to do the same thing. Let me see what size this one is. So this is a 21 by 44. So I'm going to load that one into my project. I'm going to go to beam. I don't have it in my shapes, so I'm going to load family. And then I'm going to go back to the initial US Imperial, and it's actually going to be in the structural framing now, steel, and then a flange. You can see what it looks like. Hit open. Again, it's going to give me my types. 21 by 44. There we go. There it is. Then hit OK. So now I have my project. So I don't want to. You can place it here if you wanted to. I found it easier to go from the floor. So my level 2, that's where it's going to be placed. And then we go to beam, and then again you can place these. So you can use your draw tools. I can actually just draw one. See, I can draw a line, and that's where it's going to go. But the easier way to do it again is on grid line. So I'm going to put it on my level 2, my 21 by 44. I do on grid lines, select everything, and then just hit finish. And then you can't see in this view, but if I go to my 3D view, you can see that they are all placed. So again, if they're different, you can just click on them, switch them out with whichever shape you need to. Once you have one floor and say it's all the same, I can, select all of my structural framing. In this case, I'm just going to do this. And then I can copy it up, paste it to selected levels, 3, 4, 5. There you go. Oops, that's too far. Okay, select the levels. 3, 4. Let's just go 3, 4. There you go. There's your steel. A little bit about the structural framing. You can tweak it a little bit if you need to. So, for example, in this case, they have their structural framing actually down below because you have your floor line, your deck at the second floor, and it goes down, 5 inch thick. So that beam is actually at the bottom of it, so it's going down by 5 inches. So ours, if I click on it, you have the ability to adjust that. So it's going to be at level 2. So again, if I toggle my, oops, let me set that, turn it off so I can toggle it. If I turn it to coarse, you see it's just lines. And I turn it to fine, you'll see everything. So one thing to note is this line that is, driving where the shape is, that can be adjusted in your what they're calling Y and Z offset values. So I'll go over that first. So for example, if I needed to shift it, this way, you can see it has the Y offset value and the Z offset value. So my Y offset, if I do like a foot, you can see that it's going to go into the building. So that's your offset. For whatever reason, if it's offset, and then I can move it up or down based on that Z value. So theirs is like minus 5 inches. You can see it goes below the floor line. So that's how you would adjust it. You don't really need to draw the line below 5 inches. You can use this to adjust it. If you also need it to be sloping for whatever reason, you can use the start level offset. So say this was actually, like 5 feet higher or something. You can see that it's going to have your starting point and it's going to slope down to your end level offset. So that's these. You have that ability as well. All right. So those are the different options. The same thing also applies to like tube steel. So if you needed to load into your project, you can load in, I believe you'd be the beam, load family, and then you would just select it from here, whichever shape you would need. So any shape that you, whether it's an L angle or where is it? A channel or something you need, you just select it from here, load it, and then adjust the properties. Yeah, structural, follow structural section. So they work the same way. If I were to, you can't see them here because it's not in the cut plane, but you can also draw it like I mentioned. I'll do it on the far one. And you see I just drew a straight line or whatever line that you need, and I placed the one that was selected. Okay. So go ahead, mess around with those, load different ones in. You can change things out. And again, just make sure that if you need it, you can place it if, for whatever reason you don't have a structural model or if there's no model. So that's basically the 3D version. I also want to cover the 2D version, but is there any questions or anything about the 3D part of it? No? No questions yet? All right. Pretty straightforward, just a little practice and you can get used to it. Now I want to go over the 2D version. So the same thing if we want to use structural steel in the details. So if I just create a drafting view. So this is my drafting view. I don't need these anymore. I'll close that one.
Hey, Gabe, while you're doing that, I had a question.
Yes.
If you have a roof that slopes, can you do that in this software too to kind of show how it's sloping and where the steel would be, all that kind of stuff?
I think I haven't tried it following a roof, but you can do some offsets if you know, like the start end plan.
It'd be more like the slab would be sort of sloped and then the steel would be sort of designed to follow that slab, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think if you change kind of the host, we have the option to pick a host. So if maybe we can play around with like picking the bottom of the slab, I can edit the work plane and maybe have a work plane or something that allows me to pick the bottom of it instead to follow, something like that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd probably have to play around with it a little bit, but that's a good question.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just wondering.
And I got another quick one, sorry. Are you able to kind of group certain steel beams together? For instance, like if you have, 20 different canopies with steel going through it, but all the steel is the same, could you group it so where you're just modifying one, it just updates all of them?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So I could have done that for these right here. So if I were to select all of them on the second level, and then I can create a group. And this is like second, level steel or something. I can group that, and then I can do the same thing I did, copy to selected levels, third, fourth, we can apply to canopies or wherever you want. And then if there is a change, so say, for example, they got rid of, these beams, I can edit this, get rid of these, and then just finish that, and then it'll apply. So same kind of logic. You can kind of use that group with pretty much anything, really. It's always good to group things if you can to save you from having to do multiple deletions or repetitive things. Good question. All right, so drafting views. We use a lot of, columns and steel tubes in the details. I kind of wanted to go over how to place those because I've got a couple questions on that. So once you're in a drafting view, if you go to Insert and Load Family, or you can do it from the component as well, you're going to go to the S drive and go to Revit WW Parts Library. You're going to go to Detailing Components, and you're going to go to Steel. So these are the steel ones we have. We made them custom for Walt and Wolf. You got the wide flange beam, the tube, and the angle. We need other ones, we can make some. But if you select one, I'm gonna just select the wide flange, hit open. It's gonna bring the same type properties up. Again, so you can kind of find which one you need. I'm just gonna pick like that one and that one. And just hit OK. It's gonna load into the project, it's gonna upgrade it. And then you can go to the annotate tab, go to components, and now you can see that I have my 2D version. So all those were 3D versions. Now this is my 2D version detail item. So it's the custom Ultrasoft one because it has our custom hatch. The Revit one, by default, the hatch didn't look too well. And we also included parameters to be able to tag it. So I can tag this. So right now it's using the WW family name tag, but I actually want to use the detail item tag. And then I can use it to place it 6 by 9. And you can put that on your detail. So for whatever reason, if it changes, again, you can just swap it out. And then the tag changes. It's based on the center, so it gets a little bigger, so you just might have to adjust it. So that's where you can load in these ones. Again, like I said, the tubes, the angles, anything you might need. All right. So that's where you would find it. I got a couple questions with it, so I just thought I'd go over it. That's pretty much it that I wanted to go over about structural steel. I mean, again, like I said, I'm not an expert, so if you want to play around with it and you find some cool tricks, let me know. But if there's no other questions, I mean, I don't have anything else.
Gabe, I have a question. On
Yep.
first step on grade, you copy grade based on space. If we have the same space, for example, we have 10 grade is 10 feet, 10 feet. Can we use array instead of copy?
Yeah. Exactly. So if I had this one, instead of just copying like I did it, I can use the array. You want to make sure you don't have group and associate because for grid lines, you probably don't want to group them. You just uncheck that and you just pick the number of grids you want. So say you have like 10. And then you would pick either the second or last. The second is you would specify the distance to the second one. So that's probably your best option. Or you can do last, or you can do like from here is my first one and then 100 feet away is my second one. So it'll space them out equally. And you can do the constraint. So let's go ahead and do this. So I would just click there, specify 10 feet, and then you can see that it creates my grids. One thing to note is just based on the last one you made. So just make sure the last one that you made is where you want to continue off.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep, good question. Yeah, that's pretty much all that I had that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, everything else is a little more involved. I don't really want to go over it too much. Yep, that's it. No questions? If not, have a good day, guys.
Nice job, brother.
All right, thank you, Gabe.
Thank you, thank you. Have
Thank
fun
you.
playing around with it.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
All right,
All right, see you
bye.
guys.